Hi, how you guys doing? How, for the folks on YouTube, how is the sound? Does it sound okay? I'm using a new mic and I haven't ever tried it before. Sound is fine. Good, good. We are live again on YouTube and TikTok today. Q&A, energy and politics. Any political discussion will be kept civil. I'm an independent. I don't care about, a bunch of fighting and shit. So. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are just getting started. Hey, LNG. My truck looks very office-like. This is my office, not my truck. So, but yeah, Jilly is on her way. Good. How's that? Thank you, everyone, for liking the live. Please continue. There's my moderator. Wow. Thank you so much, Steve. $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Taking questions. I used to get messaged by someone pretending to be you. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Do I know of Mark Carney? Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. Thank you for the tiny dinies. I have a tiny diny goal. Oh man, I'm buffering a bit. Well, that's great. That is fantastic. My take on the halftime show. I didn't watch the halftime show. I never watched the halftime show. So yeah, I don't really watch halftime show. Thank you very much for that, Kareem. Thoughts on house races in Florida? I haven't really kept up with them that much. Is there any polls out or?
was just typing on here too.
Hi, Julie. I am going to restart this YouTube Live. I'm having some technical issues with buffering, it appears.
Yes, it's buffering pretty bad.
I will be right back, you guys. I'm going to restart this. Okay, my YouTube audience, are you back? I am back.
So put you in the same live, so you know.
Yeah, I know. Hello, Terry. Will the price to build homes go up? Yeah, the prices to build homes are always on up, especially with lumber. See if I can get my people back over here. Do you see an executive action to remove wind farms in West Texas and Oklahoma? No, I don't see that happening. Trump could lose Congress. Yeah, he could. Does the U.S. refine its own oil, or do they have to send it overseas? Thank you for the question, Mike Markinson. The United States refines about 9 million barrels a day of its own oil, and the rest of it exports. The rest of it exports. You're welcome, Ray. Do I watch any other creators? Let me go back and find that. Yeah, I watch a few doctors, and I watch. I follow Hawk, Laughter and Light. I think that's her name. Attorney Dye. Thank you, Jacoby. We are not the largest oil exporter in the world. We're the largest natural gas exporter or LNG exporter, but not oil. Wind, solar, hydro, nuclear energy, is there a middle ground between zero carbon emissions and the point we are at now? There's no such thing as zero carbon emissions. That's why they say net zero. So net zero means we have reduced carbon emissions enough that we are at the rate where the amount we're emitting into the atmosphere is equivalent to the amount that is being burned off in the atmosphere. So there's no such thing as zero carbon emissions. There's just zero add to total carbon in the atmosphere. But net zero 2050 it's not really a thing. It's a marketing thing. It's not really a thing we can achieve. It never was. Wildflower, yes, I am. Does Canada have refineries in the US? No. People that own refinery or people that are invested in oil and gas in Canada are also invested in refineries in the US. So it's not Canada, it's companies. What is the best way to stay informed with massive resource infrastructure projects? Does one have to be industry? I'll just Google it. I mean, I don't. Would you contact the new chairman of the Democratic Party and offer some advice on messaging? No. I mean, I don't know who you're talking about, but my sense is they hear from a lot of people like me and ignore them. So I don't know what me calling them would do any good. He probably wouldn't even talk to me. Did I ever work in the Eagleford? Briefly. Huh? Oil's up today. Is that Bob? If oil is 72.33, it's up today. I don't know what to tell you. You people have difficulty looking at normal market fluctuations. I know it's up today because it was 70 over the weekend. So if it's 72.33 today, then it's up today. I don't know what is so controversial about that. Tommy has done work for all the major oil companies. Cool, Tommy. Are you work on a contract basis, consulting basis, or? The DNC chair is going to do an after action review. That'll probably help. That'll probably help a lot. Wink, wink. Do you think we've seen the lowest gas prices of the year? If you mean of this calendar year, I wouldn't say that. They could dip by a few cents. If you mean over the last year, no. So it depends if you mean the calendar year or over the previous 12 months. Thank you, Fernando. The gas price market is very stable right now, and it's very, it's within about a 5 cent range. It's going up and down. It could fall a few cents, but um just normal market fluctuations. But the closer we get to spring, the less likely we're gonna see gas prices fall. Which they're not going to fall enough to matter, honestly. I mean, they may fall 20 cents where you live, but on a national average, they won't be falling much. Do you see a scenario where OPEC caves to Donald Trump's request to lower prices on a barrel of oil? Not yet. Not yet. Something would have to happen that would give Donald Trump an enormous amount of leverage over OPEC for them to do something like that. Do they use brine on the roads in the United States? Actually, they do. Yeah, they do. If oil is traded on the global market, why does OPEC set the price? Because OPEC and OPEC Plus control 60% of the oil supply. And since the price is dictated by supply and demand, and they control 60% of the supply, then they pretty much control the price. In addition to that, they can greatly increase and decrease supply very quickly, which is something we are not capable of doing. It takes us a long time to increase supply in the United States and in other parts of the world, but OPEC can do it rather quickly. They have spare capacity that other countries just don't have. So, and I talk about all kinds of energy, but my title is in oil and gas. That's my motor. If OPEC Plus significantly increases production, how badly would that hurt our domestic industry? Pretty bad. Pretty bad. And they wouldn't have to increase it much, you know. That's stupid. A $15 drop in oil prices would be very significant for the United States. So we're on TikTok. Please like the live, gift the moderator. She's here to help. Why was there so much oversupply of oil in 2015 and 2016? That's a great question. A little bit of a history lesson. So, throughout the Obama administration, once we got through the Great Recession, the United States really ramped up oil production and we just about doubled it, oil production in the United States. Um, and we in that, you know, 2010, 11 through 2014, we took a ton of market share away from OPEC, and oil prices were really high as they kept restraining production to keep oil prices high. And then at the end of 2014, they decided that we had taken far too much market share. And so they engaged in a price war with us, and they increased production. And at the same time they were increasing production, the Chinese economy was starting to falter a little bit, and demand for oil in China dropped significantly. And all those things coupled together, caused the longest, largest, and protracted oil crash in history. So that's what happened. We got into a price war with OPEC, and they dumped a bunch of supply on the market, and in a weak market, and it totally crashed everything. Highest bankruptcy debt in history. Highest bankruptcy debt in history from the oil and gas sector because they had financed most of the shale revolution. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And that crash, which started at the end of 2014, lasted throughout 2015, throughout 2016, and didn't really end until early 2017. Are many nuclear reactors being constructed or planned? If not, when? That would reduce natural gas consumption. Actually, the Biden administration passed legislation, bipartisan legislation, in his last year in office addressing that, nuclear power modular reactors. And so the legislation has been passed. Money was put forth in the Inflation Reduction Act as well for nuclear. So we'll see. That last piece of legislation they passed was designed to sort of streamline the process so it could go a little bit quicker. So we'll see what happens. But why do we sell off so much of our oil? Because our oil is produced by private companies, who sell its oil for profit. And the best way for them to profit is to export a bunch of it. And um, it's also key because we import cheap oil to keep our gas prices down, and to drive profits in the refining sector. So everything is for profit. So if you ever have a question, why do we do this? Why do we do that? The answer is always profit. The first answer is always profit. How badly will steel tariffs hurt the oil field? It's going to increase the price to drill. It's going to increase the cost to drill. So, um, how badly? The In the first Trump administration, he implemented the exact same tariffs on Canadian steel. We bought more U.S. steel when he did that. So, but it does have a negative effect. It's not going to kill the industry, but it is going to make things more expensive, mainly for the companies who don't have an inside track and contracts set with U.S. suppliers. So, what I'm saying is the large major companies will have access to the U.S. goods first because they have the most money, and that's who U.S. Steel will want to do business with first. So, if it hurts anybody the most, it'll be the smaller businesses. I don't have a question. I want to tell you I appreciate what you do. Thank you so much for that. Is there going to be a breaking point with the Republican Party and Donald Trump? We haven't seen it yet, so I'm certainly not going to try to predict that. If a gas retailer buys 1,000 gallons on Monday and the cost of oil goes up on Wednesday, why does the retailer increase their price at the pump when that less expensive gas is still in the tank? You have to understand that cost that goes up on Wednesday is the next month's contract price. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's not the cost on Wednesday. It's always the next month's price. So it changes daily, but it's always the next month's price. Secondly, the reason they increase the price when oil goes up is to help finance and pay for their next shipment of gas. So they will they don't increase or decrease the price based on the price of the gas that's sitting in their tank, because sometimes the price drops when the higher gasoline they bought is still in the tank, and sometimes the price goes up when the cheaper gasoline they bought is still in the tank. So what's in the tank isn't that doesn't matter. It's what they're going to have to pay for the next shipment that matters. Um, that's right, Scott. Replacement cost. Do you think the Canadian government should reconsider the Energy East pipeline? Absolutely. I absolutely think they should reconsider that. They could supply Europe um, with a lot of natural resources. Um, Everyone, please like and share the live. I have a goal on TikTok Live, and please gift the moderator as well. I have a super chat goal on YouTube. Can you explain the U.S. halting LNG in February of 24 to Japan? We didn't halt LNG to Japan in February of 2024. What we did was we halted approval of new permits, things that had not been approved yet. Um, so future projects, LNG export terminals, um, anything that had already been approved was not affected. So um, we didn't stop exports to Japan. Thank you for the likes. Trying to figure out how to share this live. Well, if you figure that out, let me know. Thank you very much. It seems like an engineering degree is pretty much a requirement for a career in the industry. Not in the United States. Is there many opportunities for professionals without one? I mean, it's much harder, obviously, for a professional. Um, Thank you so much, D. Furland. Oil guy in Europe, love your content. Thank you, oil guy. Is everyone in the oil industry get notified if and when Canadian LNG starts in Canada? No, people in the oil industry don't get notified of anything really. Uh, Thank you very much, RF. Thank you for gifting the moderator too. You mentioned in a video about Trump's desire for Canada's resources. Do you have any thoughts on the impact that would have on U.S. jobs and energy prices? It's the reason we need Canadian resources is it increases our profit and it makes it less expensive for us. So, you know what I mean? That's why we want to get it from Canada, and they're our closest ally, even though our president is currently um, trying to mess that up. It appears. Thank you so much for trying to share the live and get it out. First job in the oil industry was on a drilling rig. Your personal story reminded me of how rough it can be on the rigs. Yeah, absolutely. How big of an impact would it be if Canada had their oil on the open market? Canada does have their oil on the open market. Yeah, they just don't have the buyers because they can't. It's most of it's trapped. Most of it's trapped, but it is on the open market. It's just trapped. So, you know, I think they're close to. I think they're around 850,000 barrels a day on the Trans Mountain and the Trans Mountain expansion. So, a lot of that's going to Asia. But they need to be able to get open to more markets and get more. Um, why is the price we pay at the pump not equaling what the market would detect? The price you pay at the pump is based on. Um, I mean, if you look at RBOB, you look at the wholesale price of gasoline, and then you add state and federal taxes to that, and then you add whatever markup that the retailer will place on it, that should be what you're paying for gas. Thank you, Lorianne. That's very nice. Thank you very much. You wish you could share me with Midas Touch? Midas Touch knows who I am. I've been reading The Prize, enjoying it. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, it's a great book. Um, Dean on TikTok says, I'm about your age. Diesel was always cheaper than gas. Why has that changed? Um, well, in what, 2006, 7, we implemented the ULSD standards to reduce sulfur content in diesel down to 15 parts per million. In addition to that, I've said this before, gasoline drives cars, diesels drive the economy. Diesel fuel drives the economy, gasoline drives car. And what that means is diesel fuel is not only used in trucks, diesel pickups and semi trucks and locomotives. Like it is an industrial fuel that is used widely across the industrial base. And as the economy grows and expands, the demand for diesel continues to rise because so much industry runs on diesel. So, you know, when diesel prices are rising, that's actually a sign of a somewhat or it's a sign of a growing economy anyway. I don't want to say it's a sign of a greater economy because there's a lot of things that determine whether economy is good or not, but it's definitely a sign of a growing economy. So diesel drives economy, gasoline drives cars. Thank you, Jason Hyatt. So Long Gone says RBOB is trading at 210. So okay, RBOB is 210. The state and federal taxes in my state are combined are roughly 40 cents a gallon, 42 cents a gallon. So that would be 252. And gasoline at the gas station right here, a couple of blocks from my house, is 269. So, you know, that pretty much lines up. That pretty much lines up with where I live. Um but that's for areas that use RBOB. Other areas use carbob, which is like clean burning fuel. California, uh, and carbob should be trading a little higher than RBOB. What is the main reason why so many people who disagree with you seem to have the basic facts about oil and gas, petroleum and gas, and their byproducts so wrong? It's because they get their information from politicians and the media, who drive agendas. So they're constantly flooded with misinformation, and they, for whatever reason, they trust those sources. I don't know why. It's like everyone can agree. No one would ever disagree that politicians lie, yet they believe them when they tell them things. Like, isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Like, politicians lie and you still believe them when they tell you something. What the fuck is that? So, I mean, it's really simple. It's so simple. It's dumb, really, if you think about it. Hello, Connie. Hello, Makeup Madness. Good to see you in here. Makeup Madness pays 272 in New Hampshire. I have a higher tax bracket, better gas, but still small income of people. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to get gas to New Hampshire, so that's not a bad price for New Hampshire. Hello, Franco.
Can I deal with, what the hell's her name down there? Tara, for a second. Tara, this is not a fake account of his. If you're showing 0 when you look at his thing, you need to reset your phone. There's something wrong with it. Hey, how about clearing your cache? That would work.
Hey Tara, I'm not like an AI version of Mr. Global. Like I am Mr. Global and I'm live. So this obviously is not a fake account, unless one of the fake Mr. Globals is a doppelganger that lives in a house identical to mine, has clothes identical to mine, same glasses, same voice, everything. I I am live streaming. You're looking at me. I understand that. Um, I understand she sees zero, but another thing, you can't go live if you don't have any followers, can you? No, it's fine. It was just I thought it was funny. Technology can confuse us, right? I understand. I'm old, so I get it. Andrea says, I guess cats and dogs are only eaten around election time. Yeah, well, right before election time is the spooky season. So, maybe it has something to do with spooky season. I don't know. But I haven't heard a word about cats and dogs being eaten since election day. So, maybe they just decided to stop. JPT Farm says it confuses me every day. Yeah. How often do you do lives? I'm doing them. I'm starting to do them a lot more often. I haven't. I think what I would like to do is establish a schedule that I could stick to. So mainly so my moderator can plan. So she's not told at the last minute that I'm going live. Uh, Plus, I think it would just help if so I'll have to do that. Listening from the UK has made me take a lot more interest in what affects the markets. Thank you for the heart. Thank you for listening in from the UK. Have I ever worked in the Middle East? No, I've gotten, I've had multiple opportunities to do that, and in my mind, why would I go to the Middle East when I can do what I do right here? So I just haven't gone because there's no reason to. Um, Not that I wouldn't, but thank you very much, JPT. Jim says maybe they ran out of barbecue sauce. Do we have tariffs on barbecue sauce? Is that why people aren't eating the cats and dogs anymore? Is that what's going on? I don't know. I don't know. Do you put barbecue sauce on cats and dogs or I mean, Greg Ruth says I heard that OPEC gave Trump the finger at his request to lower oil prices. Any thoughts on that? Yes. For the last, I don't know, probably ever since Donald Trump announced he was running for office, I've said that that's the first thing he would do, and they would give him the finger. Like we all saw it coming. Um, they're still not, they have a history with Donald Trump in his last administration, and there's just no way they were going to do that again. Will the busted ceasefire in Gaza have impact on markets? It will. It will. Anytime there's any type of conflict, that has an impact on energy markets, um, whether it's justified or not. The impact on the markets doesn't really matter. It just does. It always happens. So, Brenda said more tariffs on Canada today. Um, I'm assuming Brenda's talking about the steel and aluminum. Would stopping the wars have an impact on prices? Yes, it would. It would put downward pressure on prices. Anytime you stop conflict, it puts downward pressure on energy. So it absolutely would. Reservoir engineer in Vietnam, Hepleg. Thank you. Do you think nuclear power will once again be pushed hard? It's being pushed harder. I don't know if hard is the word, but it's being pushed a little bit more now. So, but the thing about nuclear power, the United States government can do all kinds of things to promote nuclear power. At the end of the day, if there's not people willing to write checks to invest in that, if it's not a good investment, then they won't. And that's really what's going to drive nuclear power moving forward is how willing are the people with money, how willing are they to invest it in nuclear power? Saudis are investing 600 billion in America. I wouldn't hold my breath. Yeah. I would not hold my breath on that. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying consider the source. K Nand, why is nuclear, I assume I'm talking about nuclear, not considered a good investment? It's not about whether it's a good investment or not. It's about whether it's the best investment. It's about, yeah, they can put their money anywhere they want. So, what's the return and what's the timeline for that return? That's what the people with money care about. Nuclear energy could be a good investment, but if there's three other investment opportunities that are much better, that's what they're going to go with because nobody is loyal to anything but the dollars they can earn. They don't care if they earn money in nuclear power or wind power or oil and gas or selling widgets. They don't care how they make the money, but that's where their loyalty lies. So they're not loyal to oil and gas, right? They're loyal to making money. Oil is up 2% for the day, $72.46. Wow. That's weird because someone said it wasn't. The capable, is that Glober? Glober? Almost sounds like global. Says that's because it's almost a 20-year return on investment. Exactly. That's another thing. The length of time to get your investment back. Now, the good thing about the investment is how solid it is because, if they stand up a nuclear plant, that's almost guaranteed money. It's so I would call it very low risk, low return, and very long term. So seeing how much energy influences our economy, why don't news shows take a much more active role in getting correct information out to the people? Because I don't know. I honestly don't know why. Maybe they're not interested in it. Maybe it's boring to them. They like things that they can turn into, hyperbolic. They're trying to get ratings, and maybe it's just not best for ratings. How much are they paying you to say there's no oil up in ANWR? I didn't say there was no oil in ANWR. I said nobody wants to go there. And that's been proven by the fact that every time they have a lease sale there, nobody buys any fucking leases. Yeah, and they're not doing that because Mr. Global said there's no oil in ANWR, by the way. Those are very smart, capable professionals looking at that. Yeah. And who would be paying me to say that, by the way? Who would be paying me to say that? That would be a really bad use of your money because some huge oil company was going to scoop up a bunch of leases in ANWR, and then they had a big board meeting and they were like, hey, wait a minute. Hold on. Forget everything we know. Mr. Global said there's no oil there. Yeah, that's not how it works, bro. Fucking dumbass, I swear. I should have said $1 trillion. That's what I should have said. $1 trillion. Will we ever boom again in Northwest Oklahoma? We got a little mini boom going on right now in Western Oklahoma. I don't know about Northwest Oklahoma. I'm not sure if the Cherokee has been mapped well enough to see it tracking Northwest Oklahoma. So it's hard to say. Thank you, Mike Tripany. Why don't companies want to drill in ANWR? So that's a good question. There's only ever been one well drilled in ANWR, and the data, the seismic data they have is 40 years old. So it's not great. It's old technology. And to drill in ANWR, you can't just go up there and drill one well or two wells or three wells. To justify the investment, you have to make a massive investment to go to ANWR. You have to be willing to commit $8 to $10 billion up front to go to ANWR. Okay. Yes, they're talking about the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And the reason you have to invest so much is that's the only way you can get your money back. You look at the Willow project that is going on in the National Petroleum Reserve. Massive investment, right? The reserves in the National Petroleum Reserve, the oil that's there, was proven to be there. They know it's there and they know they can go get it. So they were willing to make that investment. When I say they don't know what's in ANWR, they don't know what's in ANWR. They think there's some oil there. They think there's oil there. Are you willing to go spend $10 billion to find out is the question. And in this day and age, oil companies don't have the appetite to spend billions of dollars on fishing expeditions to go look for something if they don't know if it's there. They know what's in the National Petroleum Reserve. They don't know what's in ANWR. In addition to that, the cost to get the product to the market would be very high as well. Like it's just super expensive. And just like I've said before, any investment, it's an investment. And why would they spend money on that when they could put that money somewhere else where they know they'll get their money back? So that's why people don't want to go to ANWR. That, and it's become so political. It's become such a political issue, such a hot topic that they likely don't want to go there because they don't want to deal with bullshit, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they don't want to go. Did the well that was drilled in ANWR hit? There's like 2 living people on the planet. I think, at this point, that actually know the results of that one well that was drilled in ANWR. If you want to read about the well that was drilled in ANWR, you can search KIC, KIC. Google that. Google ANWR KIC well or something along those lines, and you can find all kinds of information and stories about the one well that was drilled in ANWR. And but the results of that well, the well was drilled and then it was capped, and the results of that well were kept confidential. And it's my understanding that the data from that well is actually locked in a vault somewhere, and only a couple of people have access to it. So, yeah. The refinery in Oklahoma, they're still looking for land to build it on. Their land deal fell through that they previously had, and can you explain the ban on offshore drilling? There's so much misinformation. So the ban was on the future sale of leases. It wasn't a ban on drilling, and the ban did not affect anywhere where we currently drill for oil in the Gulf of Mexico. The ban was the same ban as far as the Gulf of Mexico and a lot of the East Coast are concerned. It was the exact same ban that Donald Trump did. It was the same. It was the same area. Joe Biden broadened it. He made it larger. He went further up the East Coast and he went down the West Coast. And you have to keep in mind, drilling's been banned off the East Coast in Southern California, or the West Coast in Southern California, for 40 years. And they're still drilling because it was a stoppage of new leases, not a stoppage of drilling. And companies have held those leases for decades and decades and decades. And as long as you hold the lease, they cannot stop you, right? So that's pretty much it on the drilling ban. It's not really called it, or it's not really a drilling ban. That's just what they call it. So Schrodinger's vault, yeah. Do you believe in refracking old leases? A lot of people and companies have had success with that. Um, so, and it's a pretty common practice now. So, yeah, I believe in it. Do you think U.S. oil exports will continue to increase? I don't think they will increase that much, simply because I don't think our production is going to increase much moving forward. I think our production is going to stay flat. It's going to stay close to where it is. I don't know that we hit 14 million barrels a day. I don't know if we do that or not. We may not, but we're 13 and a half, 13.6. So it wouldn't be a huge increase to hit 14, and I'm not sure we're going to hit 14. So unless we increase our imports, I don't see our exports continuing to grow at the rate they've been growing. I think that'll flatten out. How come natural gas didn't rise more at this date? It's been cold in the United States. Natural gas has risen significantly, but we're at a place in the market right now where it's very weather driven. And it has been very cold in the United States, but it's been cold in, like, every time it's been very cold, it's been cold in like half the country, right? Um, but natural gas prices are pretty healthy. I think they're around 340, 345 today. That's not bad. They've been as high as $4. Uh, so yeah, one of the things that brought natural gas prices down was the Freeport LNG export facility. It went down in the last winter storm we had on the Gulf Coast. I believe you said OPEC made money from putting out a surplus of oil for Trump before. Why say no now? I've never said OPEC made more money. I've always said they lost money. That's why it's so hard to get OPEC to increase production, because they lose money every time they do it. If you increase your production and the value of your product drops by 20%, then you've just lost money. You've just lost a significant amount of money. And so I've never said OPEC made more money. I did say that OPEC made more money by cutting production. Maybe that's what you were. Maybe you got that mixed up. They made a lot of money cutting production, um, but I've never said they made more money by producing more oil, because they simply don't. Um, did Biden put a pause on LNG, and did it help Europe on buying from Russia? The pause that Biden put on LNG wasn't for existing exports, and it wasn't for anything that had already been approved that hadn't started yet. It only applied to permits that had not been approved yet. So the amount of LNG that we exported did not change with that pause. I believe that occurred in February of 2024. I believe it was July of 2024 when a judge struck that down. And then in December of 2024, the Biden administration and the DOJ made a motion to stay the judge's order. And what that means basically was they agreed with the judge's order. So basically, the judge's order was going to stand. It meant they were no longer going to contest it. Um, so the pause only had an impact on things that had not been permitted yet. So it may have delayed some future projects, but it didn't have an impact on anything that was happening today. Where do you place the blame for the oil crash 2014 and 2015? That is squarely on OPEC. Squarely on OPEC. I mean, if we're placing blame. Um, will tariffs drive an energy crisis in the U.S.? No, I don't believe so. Um, how has Europe been able to spurn Russian gas? Well, we're sending them a ton of gas. We're sending them a ton of gas. They've had a couple of warm winters, so they've had some periods where they didn't use as much as they historically do. So we are the reason they were able to spurn. Greg Ruth, $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Greg. Greg says, I've asked 3 questions, so it only seems fair. Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Everyone give a shout out to Greg. Feel free to ask any more questions you want as well, sir. Did any of Biden's policies have an impact on gas prices? Not really. And I know that'll be a controversial take, but one thing Joe Biden is really good at is doing things that seem like there's something, but they're really nothing. Yeah, a lot of politicians are pretty good at that. Um, Now, you could make the argument that some of Joe Biden's actions created a sentiment in the market that could have raised prices somewhat. That would be all. That would be the only thing it was, is sentiment, and sentiment is short term, right? Sentiment does not affect long term prices. The biggest driver of long term prices is the market. How much supply you got, how much demand you got. So, um, a lot of people probably believe that he made gas prices rise, but if you ask any expert that really understands the global commodities market, they'll say, "No, not really," because nothing he did impacted supply. It just didn't. It was mostly ceremonial, you know, uh, trying to keep promises that he couldn't keep. Trying to keep promises. $20 super chat, Grant Lanning. Thank you so much. That is very nice of you, Grant. Um, Please, if you have any questions, please ask. $20. Please don't give me $20. I'm 62 years old today. Well, is that today your birthday? Or are you just 62 years old? If it's your birthday, happy birthday, Grace. Once again, Grant Lanning, thank you so much for that $20 super chat. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Will Trump's run of the mouth on buying, taking over Gaza affect OPEC and working with his administration? It could a little bit. OPEC's already not a fan of Donald Trump from what happened in his last administration, so that's certainly not going to help. So they're already not going to work with him. Really, they're just not. They're just not. They've already said so. So. Thank you for the question, Lori. I can remember when in 2015-16, my son worked for Crescent and they were working 18 hours a day. Yeah, I remember Crescent. Some companies continue to operate and actually ramp up operations during low oil prices because what happens is your cost to do business drops drastically because all of the service companies that provide all of the services for the oil companies greatly reduce their prices. And so there's, uh, you know, some companies take the approach that let's go ahead and do this work while it's cheap and oil prices will recover in the near future. And, a penny saved is a penny earned is a good of a way to make money is just by earning a penny. So some places do actually stay fairly active during big downturns. Who will not work with Trump? We're talking about OPEC. OPEC will not work with Trump. Can drill baby drill actually work? It would work if they did it, but they won't do it. You know what I mean? That that's why it doesn't work because nobody will do it. So yeah. And keep in mind that as we increase production in the United States, OPEC simply lowers theirs to keep prices high. And you do get to a point where OPEC will say, "We've had enough. We're not doing this anymore," and they flood the market and they crash everything, try to put you out of business. So because they know how long it takes the United States to recover their oil production once it's lost, it takes a long time. And so the bet is that they can recover their losses during the periods where the United States is trying to recover their production. But they've done that multiple times and they've lost their ass every time they've done it. I don't see them doing it again. Lori Ann Wormley, $12 super chat. Thank you so much, Lori Ann. I really appreciate that. Lori's a rock star. Lori is a rock star. Mark Miller, will we ever see young shale development like the Green River Basin? I do believe so, Mark, and thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I do think we will. And the thing about oil and gas development is it's all about timing. There's a few things, right? So it's about timing, and it's also about other basins that exist around the country, right? And right now, the Permian Basin is so prolific and so profitable that it's hard to get people to invest money in other basins because it's just so good in the Permian, right? Now, the cost of entry into the Permian is high and it's significant, but that's where the money's funneling to, right? All of the money is funneling into the Permian Basin. And the Green River Basin has a lot of potential, and we could drill a lot of really good wells there. But the return on investment uh, is not proven to be superior to the Permian Basin. But the Green River is a perfect example of one of those. It's like we're going to get to it. It's sort of, once the Permian continues to decline, and probably if I would say the next large bull run of oil prices would definitely generate more activity in the Green River Basin than it has in the past. But yeah, I've heard a lot and read a lot about the Green River Basin, and I think there's a ton of potential there. It's just, in this industry, it's all about time. And it's not if it's going to happen, but when. And I think with Green River, it's not an if, but a when. Did I ever work in the Eagleford? I worked in the Eagleford briefly. I didn't spend much time there. I when I went to the Eagleford, the Permian was just taking off, and so I was quickly transplanted to the Permian from the Eagleford. You guys, please like the live and let's get some engagement going. I really appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with me. 330 people on TikTok. We got about 90 people on YouTube. I've been to San Diego. Yeah, I've been to San Diego. It's nice. If fusion becomes a realistic option, what happens to the oil industry? Not a lot. We don't use a ton of oil to generate electricity. But it would take a very long time. Even once fusion became economically viable, it would take decades and decades for it to have a real impact on natural gas. Because that's just how long it takes. You're talking about replacing an entire infrastructure system that our country was built on, right? So it would have an impact, but it would take a long time for it to happen. Do I understand this right? They won't drill more now due to the increase in volume would lower price and wreck the return on investment. Or, as you said, OPEC would lower to keep it level. Both. So they won't increase drilling more now for the exact same reason that OPEC won't increase production because they make less money, right? So, you know, um, oil is $72 today. If oil was 90, they would drill more, but it's 72. And so it is. We're also entering probably a 24-month period where the market is solidly balanced and maybe somewhat oversupplied, and we could see oil prices in the 60s, over the next couple of years. And they're not going to continue to increase production into what is considered a bear market. That's a money losing deal all day, every day, right? So they're going to be very conservative. They're going to pull back their capital expenditures that they push towards the upstream side, and they're going to produce, and they're going to generate cash flow, and they're going to return money to their shareholders. But they're not going to um, invest a lot of money in drilling and producing more oil. And they also run the risk, as I said, if they take too much of OPEC's market share, OPEC could decide to flood the market to try to damage the US oil and gas industry. They've done it before. I don't think they'll do it again. They've tried a couple of times and failed. But they could. And that's something that is always on the minds of US oil producers. It seems like $75 is a good price point. Yes, that's a pretty good price point. Uh, Absolutely loving your calm and thoughtful answers. So very professional. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much, JG. Um, Thank you, Jason Hyatt. ANWR versus Green River. Wonder who would win. I would bet on Green River because the cost of entry would be so much cheaper, and it'd be so much easier to get your product to the market. So volume goes out on TikTok when you have a message. Yeah, I figured that was happening. Thank you, Josh Webster. What's my prediction on Trump's economy? I'm not really an economist, you know. Um, and when we go to talking about economies, I'm probably not much more versed than the average person. Just being honest. But I I don't think it'll be terrible, but I do think he's probably doing some things that won't help. So with all the tariffs, and my my s- my suspicion is that these tariffs will be a temporary thing. Um, One thing about Donald Trump is he needs to always be able to take credit for something good that's happening. And if the economy starts to flatten out or dip a little bit, I suspect he will quickly reverse some of the things he's done because he can't stick to what he wants to do if it reflects negatively on him at all. So do you have opinions on the Trans Mountain Pipeline, given what Trump has done and stirred up in Canada? I see our government looking to diversify. I think the Trans Mountain Pipeline is one of the best decisions Canada's made in a long time, honestly, and they need to make that decision again. Um, how often do you do your lives? I don't have a set schedule right now. I'm kind of I may start doing them daily. I don't know. Maybe 3 days a week. I don't know. But I haven't been doing them for a long time. And now that I'm on YouTube, I do them more often. Is there really any difference between fuel oil and diesel? Not really. I mean, not really. It's pretty much the same thing, minus a few additives, It's basically the same thing. Um Do you think Trump is just gaslighting us, or does he really not understand how tariffs work? I don't know, man. Asking me to get in Trump's head. Hell, for all I know, he's just doing it for attention. Maybe he thinks it works, maybe he doesn't. Um, I quit trying to get in Trump's head and figure out what he was thinking a long time ago. Like, uh, what is the American feeling? I guess I'm the American about all of this annexing Canada talk. It's upsetting a lot of Canadians. I feel like it's fraying the relationship. I don't like it either. I think it's stupid. and I think it's a way to stay in the headlines, and I think it's a way to get attention. And I don't think there's I don't think there's anything there, you know. It's dumb. It's just dumb, and it's childish, and it's exactly what we can expect from this president. So, did we lose refining capacity under Trump's first term? Yeah, I believe we lost 12 refineries during Trump's first administration. Part of that was due to the crash at the end of the Obama administration, and part of that was due to COVID, and part of that was also due to, that low oil prices that existed through probably 70% of the Trump administration. Some of that he manipulated artificially. Um, but yeah, we lost 12 refineries. By the time we got out of COVID, we had lost about 1 million barrels a day of refining capacity. Um, but yeah, we did. We absolutely did. We've gotten, I think it's 450,000 barrels a day back is what we've gotten clawed back. But we did lose about 1 million. I saw some really old locomotive manuals at work. Man, that would be cool. I love old manuals. Do you do speaking engagements? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do some. I I don't do everything that's offered, but um, I saw some really old locomotive manuals at work referring to it as fuel oil. Yeah, man, these telemarketers are blowing up my phone today. Thank you, Mike. Do you know anything about the earthquake in Greece? I have not heard anything about an earthquake in Greece. I have not. Was it a bad one? Don't forget to like and share the live. Thank you all very much. Am I working at a university? No, I'm in my house. Where the oil industry is concerned, is it more secure and settled under a Democrat or Republican president? Um, so historically, and by historically, I mean over the last 40 years. Over the last 40 years, um, what the data says is that the industry performs better um, under Democratic administrations, and the reason the industry performs better is because the economy's better. When the economy's better, the industry's better. So now, if you're a consumer, you may not like that because your gas prices are going to be higher. You know what I mean? So it depends if you're talking about the health of the industry or the health to the consumer's wallet, or you know what I mean. Um, and so we have had higher gas prices under Democrats. We've also had better economies. We just have. That's what the all the data shows, and there's no data out there that is other than what I just said. So, and it's not really a product of policy. Um, it's really of just economic performance of the overall economy. It's not really about oil and gas policy itself, because a lot of that policy does nothing to impact the industry. No, it's a supply and demand world, and it's really hard to regulate commodities like that. Um, so it's really a function of the economy and not policies within the industry. I did watch the Super Bowl. I did not watch the halftime show. I don't watch halftime shows. I never have, even when I was a kid. I've never been interested in halftime shows, so I didn't see it. Um, the Canadian ads are not as good as the American ads. um, how do they determine um, where to do test wells for new exploration for basins, and who would decide to cover expenditures? There's a lot of different ways to determine that. It's impossible to enter a basin this day and age without having data from old wells, from old antique oil field. Um, you take all the old geologic mapping, you take all the data you can, you look at the geography, right? One thing they can do is they can go into old wells and test them and test different zones. Um, that's one of the things my company has done. We go into old wells and test different zones from existing well bores that haven't been tapped into before, and see if there's, because we have new technology now that we didn't have in 1975. Um, but they just collect as much data as they can. They look for channels within the rock, where hydrocarbons might collect, and they pick a spot and they go drill it. So, but it's not just like putting on a blindfold and throwing a dart at the wall. That's not a thing. That's not how they do it. Do you think that a majority of oil companies contributed to the Trump presidency or past Republican candidates over Democratic candidates? So big oil doesn't contribute money to federal elections. They all have strict policies against that. They can only donate money towards local candidates, right? So when you hear about the industry donating money to Donald Trump, that's people that work within the industry, but it's not companies themselves. Now, Energy Transfer was the largest donor to Donald Trump this last election. Energy Transfer is a midstream company, pipelines, compressor stations. Um, and I believe they donated $12 million. The total donations from either individuals or companies within the industry as a whole was about $32 million. Um, you you hear about the oil and gas industry giving billions of dollars to Donald Trump. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. It's just not. And another thing you won't find are any donations from an Exxon, a Shell, a BP, a Chevron, a ConocoPhillips. Like, you won't find any donations from those companies. They have strict policies against doing that. That doesn't mean that some of the people that work within those companies didn't donate some of their own personal money. But no, the majority, it's not even close. There's thousands and thousands of oil companies, and the percentage of them that would that would donate money to any political candidate, especially on a federal level, is extremely small. Extremely small. And um, I can't remember the website. What's it called? Open Secrets. I think that's the website I go to when I look for stuff like that. And I just go there to look for oil and gas stuff. And so, which engine should last longer, gas or diesel, and why? It's not based on the type of fuel the engine uses. It's based on what you ask that engine to do. You see what I'm saying? You know, what is the engine doing? That's what determines the life of it, not the type of fuel that's, a diesel engine that doesn't often operate with under a lot of load or strain can last a really long time because it's built to do stuff. It's built to do work. You know what I mean? So, I would say a diesel engine would typically last longer if it was doing the same things the gasoline engine was doing. And if it wasn't, if it was doing what it was meant to do, it's probably about the same. Um, Probably about the same. Do you think it's better to run your home off of propane or off of oil? Honestly, I would say propane would be better. Um, it's cleaner, it's cheaper, and it generates a much higher BTU than oil. That's a high BTU fuel, so that means it burns very efficiently, and so um, I would say propane would be better. That's right. You can cook with it too. Hello, Douglas. Thank you for the question, Kersey. I'm asking because if my oil boiler system goes down, I'm wondering if I should replace it with propane. Um, I mean, I would look at the cost of each, and just see what the total cost is. If you've been happy with oil and the cost to replace that system is significantly cheaper, then I would stick with what you got if it's been working. But you know, and how well the engine is maintained. Yeah, yeah. Propane furnace would be a lot smaller and far more efficient. Yeah, and the thing is, that's the one thing I don't know is the cost difference between those two systems themselves because I've never had to consider buying a boiler. That's I live in Oklahoma. We all have natural gas piped to our homes, so I don't really know anything about the cost of those systems. So if the cost is comparable, I would probably go to propane. And another thing you might you should do if that happens is you should really look at because the cost of propane can vary greatly throughout the country, and you're in the Northeast corridor. Well, you're in the Northeast, not just the corridor, but you're way up there. So I would definitely look at historical prices of propane in your area because it may be significantly more expensive where you are than where I am. So, and I do know that fuel oil is a lot more common in your area, and I don't know how common propane is specifically where you live. It's a very localized market, so take a look at your market and prices in your local area and see where they're at, and just add all that up. And but as far as performance, propane would be better. Yes. Diesel will give you better fuel mileage. Towing, absolutely, it will. Yeah, you try to tow with a gas powered engine, and you're going to be spending some money. What's the biggest oil company you worked for? I worked for Shell. That was the biggest company I worked for. I spent 12 years with Shell. Hi, Mary Brown. Mary recently got natural gas over propane. It's nice not getting those surprise $1,200 due today bills. Yeah, you got to pay that on delivery. Your 100-gallon tank lasted you a decade. Wow. I was working in the Midland office. Can you send Shell to Canada to build us a new line east? Actually, Shell is a large investor of LNG Canada, the new LNG export terminal that they're building in British Columbia. They're actually a large investor in that. And in addition to that, I can't remember the name of the pipeline, but they're a big investor in that project. So Shell's still pretty active in Canada. I do have a 100-pound propane tank that I use for my grill. Um, it's about 4 foot tall. That thing will last me a few years. Yeah, and I grill a lot. We probably grilled 2 or 3 nights a week. Thank you, Jude. What is that? 55,000 likes on the clock app. Thank you for the likes. Please continue to like the live. I have a goal set. I don't know where I'm at on that goal. Reset that goal.
They are working to get to 60K likes. That's our next goal.
Got a new goal for corn.
Oh. With the corn.
Got the corn. Propane gets cheaper the more you use it. That is correct. Curious how tariffs work when a Canadian oil and gas company has refineries in the United States. Yeah, that's. I mean, technically, it's not different. It's just because it's not the Canadians, it's not the people in Canada paying the tariff, but it is the same people that exist in the United States that's paying it. So when you, like you're talking about, if there's retaliatory tariffs, then they're getting hit twice. They're getting hit twice. Exactly. Can the US produce the steel and aluminum they currently get from Canada? Yeah, they can. Um, but they're not going to. They're not going to increase their production capacity. They're just going to pass that cost on to the customer because tariffs are temporary. So they're not going to ramp up operations and spend money to produce more. They're not, because they know the tariffs will go away, and it takes time to earn your investment back. And they'll just pass the cost on to the customer. Yeah. 350 people on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, please share the live. Get the word out.
And the chat is moving much slower over in YouTube. So if you have a question, you could always go over there. And don't forget to follow him over there.
Thank you, Janie. Fox Entertainment said it was patriotic to pay more. Yeah. Does Canada have the infrastructure to refine their own oil? Canada refines pretty much about all the oil they need to use for consumption. But they don't have a lot of capacity to refine what they export. And they don't really need to refine it, you know. Is Trump the reason Quebec is reconsidering pipelines? I I don't know if he's the reason, or I mean, I'm guessing that most of that discussion is coming from the conservative um, group of in Canada, and it may be coming from the other side as well. But I wouldn't say, by the time they would finish the pipelines, Trump would be out of office. So you write it out, you know. Were you solely stationed in the US while working for Shell? I went to Europe a couple of times, but that was for school and different things. I didn't really do much. I was involved in some projects overseas, but I wasn't there. I was just involved in some of the planning that occurred in the States, but I was US based, yeah. So here's a question that I don't know the answer to. How many years of domestic production for aluminum does the US have if it cuts all imports? I've seen 1 year based on bauxite and graphite reserves. I cannot answer that question. So whatever you're looking up, um, you know, if you think the data is good, whatever you come up with, because I'm not an aluminum expert. Uh, that's not a subject that I ever thought I would have to go look up, honestly. It's just one of those things. That is interesting, though. I do know that we've put tariffs on aluminum before from Canada when the last time Donald Trump was president. So in Pennsylvania, UGI just asked for price increases for distribution works as our system of steel pipes were installed in the 30s. I thought the federal government has a program for that. That depends on the corporate structure of UGI, which I'm not familiar with. I don't. If is UGI a cooperative? Is it a corporation? Is it what is the corporate structure like? Um, but typically, is it Charlton or typically that's what they do. They ask for price increases to replace stuff. That's one thing that's occurring across the country right now is utilities asking for rate increases from their state regulatory agencies to install their renewable energy systems and upgrade grid and all that kind of stuff. All of that always goes back to the customer. All of that cost always goes back to the customer with utilities. They can make billions of dollars and they just go ask for more money from their customers. But I mean, at least there's someone between them and the consumer that has to approve it. But the issue with that is those things are the vast majority of the time they're approved. The vast majority of the time they're improved. So, and I've often wondered if there's some shenanigans going on between utility companies and the regulators, a little payoff, a little under the table. JG says it was based on people saying the US has more than enough, but I can only find graphite in Alaska and about 9 million tons of it, 20 million tons of mid quality bauxite. Yeah. That's funny that people are saying they know how much aluminum the United States has. I doubt anybody knows that. They're probably just saying it. That's how people are. They just say shit. They don't have to know anything. That's what you get with me. If you ask me a question I don't know, I won't answer it because that's not what I'm here for. Um, I need to start studying aluminum so I can keep up with JG. In 23, the United States produced 750,000 metric tons of aluminum, marking a 15% decrease. There you go. The more you know. The more you know. Inflation is a huge issue in the United States and China. Is it directly linked to oil price? The How much inflation is um, tied to energy prices has been largely overstated due to politics. Because you can go back historically and look at periods of high energy prices and much lower inflation rates than we had this time around. So there's nothing to point towards that say, when inflation peaked at whatever it peaked at in the United States, I think it was 9 or 10%. There's nothing you can point to and say that was energy. Now you can say energy contributed, so much to it because it certainly did, but it's not the primary driver. It's not just, um, because it never has been in the past. So, why would it be now? What has changed? And nothing has really changed. So there was a ton of reasons for inflation. Energy is one of those things, but it's not the primary driver of it. You look at really high oil prices under Bush and under Obama, you do see upticks in inflation, but nothing even in the universe close to what we saw under Joe Biden. So, yes, I'm looking at comments on both. At what point do you think U.S. refining capacities should switch from light sweet to heavy sour in order to accommodate domestic production? We can already refine our light soil. We can already do that. We don't have to switch anything. It's just more profitable to refine the heavy sour because it's cheaper and our refineries can do it. They can also refine light sweet. They can. If the more we refine 9 million barrels a day of light sweet right now, the more of the light sweet we refine, the higher your gas prices are going to be and the less profit the refiners make. And that's why we refine the amount of heavy sour crude that we refine. It's a profit center, and it also is a price driver. It drives down prices in the United States. So tariffs will hurt small businesses the most. I mean, that's true, Josh. That's absolutely true. Thank you for thank you for tapping, Amanda. Thank you guys for the gifts. Got me some corn. Got me some corn on the TikTok app. Thank you so much. Your special needs? Well, that's okay. You know, please don't forget to gift the moderator, Jill. Well, I'm pointing at this screen, but I'm looking at this screen. Currently modding again on two lives. She's a professional moderator, folks. I need to find a certificate or something. Thank you, Megan. Megan Smith says, I have poignant insights, Jill. I don't think anyone's ever said that to me. Thank you for that. The sarcastic sister says, great job, Jill.
I know she can't, maybe she can hear me through your mic. Thank you.
Jill said, thank you, sarcastic sister. I bet you got a big turbo diesel. I used to. I drive an F-150 now. I drove diesels for almost 20 years, but now I got an F-150. What would you say if the next president asked you to be a cabinet member for energy? I don't know. I don't know if that's the thing that's going to happen because I'm not a billionaire. Like, you got to be rich to get those positions. Those are positions for extremely privileged people. Mr. Global, get out your Sharpie and rename one of the big lakes after Jill. What lake would we rename? I seem to be the only one in the oil field around this area who isn't all in for Donald Trump. I don't get it. Well, welcome to the club. Is there anything on Landman that's true? I'm sure there's something on there that's true. I can't remember it, but I'm sure there's something. You're the only one I trust to be real about oil and gas. Thank you for that. Honestly, there's only a couple of people in our industry that I trust to be real with oil and gas. Why is the wall behind you blue on TikTok and white on YouTube? Well, that's because those are two different walls. You're looking at that wall, and over here, you're looking at that wall. Not the same wall.
YouTube changed the color.
Give you a little. So this is that wall, see? And then this is that wall. So it's an illusion. Accent wall? Probably. That's probably what it is. I don't know. I'll take your word for it. That is what that is? Okay. Yeah, I believe you. I call it a blue wall, but I think it is an accent wall. Yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna argue about decorating with people that know more about it than I do. Is it an accent wall because of the color or because of all the picture frames?
So to make an accent wall about the color. That's what you
Oh, okay. It's the ceiling accent because it's that color too.
No, some people just like dark color, but it's nice.
So if the ceiling is the same color as that wall, isn't the white wall the accent wall? That's the one wall that's different than everything else.
It could be. I have to ask my husband that one.
Yeah. Why isn't everyone watching on both platforms? They probably don't have two devices. Do you need two devices? Yeah, you need two devices. You run one in the background? I don't know. Megan Smith says an accent wall is usually a single wall in a room that's designed differently than the rest.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
But does the ceiling count as a wall?
No, it does not.
Because technically, there's only two walls in this room, technically.
Yes, because the others are.
Well, there's three, but this is all wood. And then there's two walls because they meet like this, right? So it's like a 3-wall room.
What color is the wall in front of you? I forget.
There is no wall in front of me. The walls go like this and meet. So, huh?
What color is that wall? Where the door is?
It's white.
The blue is accent.
Okay. Man, we are solving the world's problems here with my walls. Learned something today. How much do you think the 25% tariff will affect oil-filled tubulars? This may be another nail in the coffin for Drill Baby Drill. Well, the simple answer is I think they'll go up by 25%. And that's a lot for tubulars because if you've ever bought casing and a production string and a drill string, like that's not cheap stuff. So it's absolutely going to have an impact on the cost. Not only cost, to drill new wells, but the cost to work on old wells. There's pipe yards across the Midwest and the Gulf Coast right now that they may be marking up their pipe. If I had a yard full of 2 7/8, which I actually do have a lot of 2 7/8, but it's mine. If I was in the pipe business, my 2 7/8 just went up $1 a foot. Is the Keystone Pipeline a go under the Trump administration? I would not say so. I would not say so. Mike Ross says, follows me on all platforms. Where did I get my start? I started in drilling when I was 18 years old. So what you're saying is that people are going to get paid more for laying pipe. Not really laying it, running it in the hole. Yeah. They're going to spend more to run it in the hole. I thought the oil industry was complicated. I know, like this whole accent wall thing is much more complicated. It's wild.
I could go ask questions, but I'm not going to.
I think you're right, Jill. I think the door, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, there's two walls that are white then, because even though it's not a wall, it's still a wall where the door is.
Yeah, it's just not a 90. It's just kind of a slight angle, and then there's a door. But technically, that would be a very narrow additional wall. Technically, it's more of like a 45 degree. And if that's the case, you could say there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 walls in this room because this goes 90, 45, 45. What? No, like you have a wall and then it goes 45 degrees for a bit and then it goes 45 degrees again where the door is. So technically that's 3 walls. So if that little wall that's 5 feet wide is a wall, then that wall there is a wall and that wall there is a wall too.
I know what you're talking about.
So
That's exactly what you're talking about. But there's only one blue wall,
that's true. And the ceiling is blue.
so that's accent. And someone said that the ceiling is considered, part of the wall in designing, so that would be just like little things in a wall. So there you go. It's the accent of wood.
You want to see the room? Pan her up. Okay. Let me get my camera here. Actually, I think I can just turn this without picking this up. So that's the wall we're calling an accent wall. All right. And then there's the ceiling. All right. But that's what I mean. There's technically 3 walls here because there's a 45 there and a 45 there. So that's 1 wall, 2 walls, 3 walls, 4 walls, 5 walls. Yeah. Man, I got dizzy doing that. Okay, everybody's seen my walls. And there, yeah, we forgot about the earthquake in Greece. 5.3 earthquake. You're not supposed to paint over pictures. That's what I said. But what do I know? Why don't I go into politics? So many reasons. I don't think I'm politically correct enough to go into politics. My grandfather worked making the wood barrels for Imperial Oil for 42 years, 4 in World War II, and my father 32 years. My brother just retired 40 years, Chemical Valley, Sarnia Refinery. Wow. It's a lot of wood barrels.
So when someone asks why you don't get into politics, you got an answer on YouTube that says he's too honest. You got an answer on here, too honest. And I happen to agree with both of those people.
Everyone says I'm too honest. Okay, we'll go with that. So Craig Scott, you know who else made wood barrels The 42-gallon wood barrels. John Heisman. The person the Heisman Trophy is named after. His father owned a company in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of it, but they made 42-gallon wood barrels for Standard Oil. And John Heisman worked there as a kid. And then he went to college, became an amazing football player, and had the Heisman Trophy named after him. So there's a bit of trivia you may not have known. Is the painting on my right a Jack Terry? I don't know. I don't know anything about paintings other than they hang on the wall. Are you talking about that one right there? That says Nicholas something on it. And I don't know if you're talking about that one. I can't see the name on that one. Or if you're talking about that one, you can't see the name on that one either. But yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say we probably got $5 in these paintings. We buy everything at thrift stores. Right out of the 60s.
We got a troublemaker down there in the chat, Barrister.
Oh, man. Block them. We block troublemakers. Hey, Beth. Welcome to my YouTube live.
He is Scotty's trouble.
If he ain't trouble, he's looking for it. Jill, it turns out my wife has another iPad I can use.
Oh, that's good.
If we can find it.
Well, you know what to do, right? Go to the middle of the hall and turn in circles.
Yeah. Well, this one wasn't set down somewhere; it was stored somewhere. So,
if you go to the middle of the house and you turn in circles, you might remember where you stored it.
I didn't store it.
That felt good to do that to you.
Did that feel good?
Absolutely.
Everyone's dad is here. Wow. Some people are going to like you and some people aren't. Oh, thank you for the hat. If you're on TikTok, please gift the moderator. Don't send them to me, send them to Jill. I'm a Canadian with the threat of tariffs. The talk up here is pipelines. After we went far over budget on the Kinder Morgan extension, what is the outlook? We get our return. You're going to get your return. It's just going to take longer. Yeah. They did spend a lot of money on that. I can't remember what that ended up being. Was it like 34 billion or something they ended up spending on that thing? That's going to take a minute. J.D. Irving is trying to sell the refinery in New Brunswick. Who would want it? I would look to see who owns the midstream assets in that area, pipelines, things like that. If there's any large midstream companies that might also be a large, does um, you know, and also, are there any large companies sending oil into there, like Imperial or Big Oil, or and it may get bought by a private equity group, and it may not get bought at all. So Jason Stevens says 30 billion in Canadian. I don't know what that means in US dollars, but it's a Canadian pipeline in Canada, so it really doesn't matter in US dollars. But 30 billion Canadian. So what's that? Probably 23 billion US, something like that. That includes the 4.5 billion the Canadian government paid for the project in 2018. Wow. I came across a down-to-earth farmer on YouTube today, down-to-earth and genuine like Mr. Global. His name was, can't remember. Was his name Will Westmoreland? That's the only one I know. Oh, I think she's joking. Yeah, I think she's joking. Back 40? That could be anybody. Hell, everybody calls themselves back 40 in the agriculture business. Only started following this week. Thank you for the great content. Thank you, Ryan. Bess says the back 40 is where I park when I go grocery shopping. Are you hunting for your groceries or what? Trans Mountain expansion is 700 miles. Yep. Is Will's channel called his name? I don't know on YouTube. It probably is because it is in other places. I don't think I've seen him on YouTube before. He's probably here. I just haven't thought about it. But are there any industry publications on operating expenses? You talking about lease operating expenses? That varies widely within each company. If you're talking about lease operating, or are you talking about company operating expenses? That varies widely as well. I honestly am not familiar with any publications regarding operating expenses or lease operating expenses. Probably because there's such a wide, they vary so much throughout the industry with every company. Um, so I'm not familiar with any publications on that. You could look at financials of that are posted online of big oil, but that certainly wouldn't be representative of the industry because they have a lot of efficiencies and synergies that small companies don't have, who generally spend more on lease operating expenses. How do you know if your expenses are within industry range? We don't look to see if they're within industry range. We look to see how low we can get them, within our operating budget, because every company is so vastly different, um, that it's very difficult. I mean, we kind of know historically what we've spent, throughout our careers on lease operating expenses, but we don't really, the value isn't in comparing it to other operators because they have vastly different corporate structures across the board, right? So it's the focus is on just driving them down as much as possible within your corporate structure, and you know, so we really don't look across the industry at that. It is Will Westmoreland. See, we got it right. He's from Southwest Missouri. The back 40. Oh man. Who is Julie? She's my moderator. She just sent me corn. I sent her corn one time. What time did I start? 2 hours and 33 minutes ago. So a little after 2 Central Time. I'm going to be shutting down pretty soon. That's right, Jill. She is the moderator, or Beth, she is the moderator and she makes the rules. Should we still use ethanol in our gasoline? Sure. Absolutely. Why not? What do you think will happen with natural gas if Russia takes over Ukraine? Well, that's kind of the bad part because nobody's going to buy it from them for a really long time. How many years does it take countries to forget something and move on and forgive and start doing business with you again? So it's kind of ironic if they're going through all these efforts to get these natural resources, which they have plenty of for themselves. They would only need them to export, right? So it's kind of ironic to go through all this, and if you achieve your goal, you've done nothing because no one wants to buy what you've stolen. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't think it'll have much impact. I mean, it'll take more future production largely off the market if nobody's willing to buy it. So, but I don't think it would currently have much of an impact. I've had 8 missed phone calls from telemarketers since I started this live. Mr. Global, do you think China won't buy it from them at a lower cost? I mean, they won't buy any more than they would have already bought from Russia. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of additional capacity there. Like they would have to build a lot of pipelines and things like that. So years and years in the future they could, but um, yeah, I mean, so they're also not currently producing just a massive amount of natural gas, and the reserves they have are somewhat questionable as far as how much they have. So that's one of those things that they talk about in Washington D.C. when they're trying to figure out how much they're helping Ukraine is what do we have to lose if Russia wins? And natural gas is one of those things. So worst case scenario, we pick up everything Europe and they pick up China, and it's kind of a wash. So I don't know. The Keystone XL is not up and running. That's not a thing. No, it's not. I've heard that Russia has lost a lot of refineries. Yeah, I don't know exactly how many. A lot of them have been severely damaged and are not operable. Who got all the oil in Iraq? Country or companies? Well, the country retained its oil, and companies got the right to go get it, to go help them extract it. So the company is, or the country is still getting its oil revenue, but companies are that weren't there before are there now, making money off of that. Yes, if that's your question, yes. So the answer is both. If Trump can't get an increase on global production, will prices soar? No, no. The market is well supplied. Coach Raven says which companies? The majors. Exxon is there. Shell is there. Who else is there? I know Halliburton is there, working in service company capacity. So the big names are there. Yeah. Do we still get oil from the Alaskan pipeline? Yes, we do. The amount, I don't remember how much that has decreased. It's decreased drastically. I think it's down to, hell, I can't remember. It's declined a lot. We still get oil from it though. Um, I think it's a, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd probably have to look it up. But for some reason, I'm thinking it's like 350,000 barrels a day or something like that. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of some other pipeline, but let me look that up real quick because I'm not sure. I could be way off. We don't think about the Alaska pipeline much anymore, really, because it's declined so much. We'll see how far off I was. What did I get? Thank you so much for the gifts. So it has declined a lot. This is saying 400,000. What did I say? 350? I don't remember what I said. This is saying about 400,000. So, and keep in mind, that pipeline's rated for over 2 barrels a day. So, All right. Well, it is 5 o'clock. That means it is time for me to shut it down. I really appreciate everyone coming in and joining. Jill, thank you so much for helping me out again today. Um, if you would like, we can schedule this.
Up to you.
Well, no, it's up to you. One more question I'm going to answer. A barrel of oil makes how much gas? About 20 gallons. A 42-gallon barrel of oil makes about 20 gallons of gas. So thank you everybody so much for coming in. I'm going to shut it down. Thank you, Jill, so much. And we will see you guys probably tomorrow, huh? Thanks, everyone.